This week's episode of Aliens Explored is dedicated to our Explorer of the Week, D. Nandwani. D, thank you very much for signing up to our Patreon page. This allows us to do what we love most and produce the material that we know that you all love to hear. Check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Aliens Explored. See what tiers are available and the range of gifts and offers that we can provide at the various tiers. That's patreon.com/Aliens Explored. And thanks once again to Dean Nandwani for signing up to become one of our patrons.
Aliens Explored is a podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a sceptical perspective whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it? Contrails are those white trails we see in the sky, left by aircraft flying at a high altitude. Usually, they dissipate within minutes. So what would account for a perfect unbroken contrail extending from Antarctica to the North Pole? Was it really left by a vehicle capable of travelling that distance in a matter of minutes? Join us on Aliens Explored as we investigate the mysterious 2018 pole-to-pole contrail.
Welcome back, listeners, to yet another episode of Aliens Explored, your weekly podcast for strange and mysterious happenings with UFOs, UAPs, aliens, extraterrestrials, extra-dimensional beings, maybe they're time travelers, who knows what the hell they are. I certainly don't, and I'm one of your hosts, Stu Jackson.
And I'm your equally clueless host, Neil Kelly.
How are you doing, Neil?
Yeah, good. Staying safe, staying well.
Staying safe, that is good to hear. A lot of people, of course, are not at the moment, as we're recording this halfway through March.
Well, I think I tend to skate on thinner ice than you. I've been out working, travelling on public transport, mixing with all sorts of people.
Yes. Well, you've had COVID though, haven't you?
Well, I think I have. I thought I got it right at the start, back in March or April 2020. I had this cough that lasted for weeks and weeks, just wouldn't go away. And then when I had my first vaccine, I had a really strong reaction to it. I was lying in bed, freezing cold. Nothing I could do to get warm. I couldn't put anything on me or on the bed to get warm. I was shaking so much the bed. I was keeping the wife awake because the bed was shaking. My teeth were chattering, and then the next day I was just kind of wiped out. I just kept falling asleep. And someone told me that that's a sign that you've had it because your body has recognised the virus and gone into full on, man the barricades mode.
But is this one of the many, many medical experts on Facebook?
No, this was...
or was it an actual medical expert?
It was the pharmacist. Next time I went for my second jab a few months later, and he said, this reaction probably won't be anywhere near like as that, but that's a sign that your body recognised the virus.
Okay, I'll trust the word of a pharmacist. Yeah, I mean, there is so many people. That just shows how jaded I am.
But also, I mean, it makes a kind of sense that your body will react to a vaccine like that. I mean, normally, flu vaccines people often get sick with, don't they? They certainly get a sore arm, but sometimes get sick with the flu vaccine.
Yeah, touch wood. I don't tend to react too badly to flu, and The COVID vaccines didn't affect me that badly at all. I think one of them I think it was the second one. Yeah, I felt a bit rough for a couple of days, but nothing too bad. Mind you, I mean, with my various medical conditions, feeling rough is just a standard day for me. So to give our listeners a bit of context, the reason we're talking about it is, of course, because the cases have gone up through the roof 2 weeks after all the restrictions were lifted. Who could have foreseen that coming?
Yeah, but Neil? Actually, it's happened even faster than that, hasn't it? It's happened in less than 2 weeks. There are scientists saying, well, we thought the lifting of restrictions we'd see a spike in cases, but it's come even faster than we expected, and they don't know why.
No, well, because people knew that the restrictions were coming to an end and went out and did their own thing anyway. Because
perhaps
human nature. It's like, well, if it's going to be, if I don't have to wear my mask in 3 days, why am I wearing it today?
Yeah, there is that arbitrariness to it, isn't there?
That's the mentality of people.
And also, Boris Johnson says, well, why should I listen to what he doesn't follow his own rules, so why should I follow them? I'm sure the Partygate had a bearing on it. I'm sure when all that came out, that members of our government weren't following the rules that they'd enforced on the rest of us. I can imagine a lot of people just said, well, fuck it then. I'm not going to follow them.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to a party.
Yeah, whereas I look at Boris Johnson lifting the restrictions, I'm like, fuck it, I'm still going to stay indoors. I'm still going to wear my mask. Imagine wearing a mask is about protecting other people, not yourselves. But yeah, it's interesting with all the increase in cases and what have you. Nick Pope has been mysteriously quiet about all that.
Has he?
Yeah. Fucker. I don't like Nick Pope, do I?
I mean, had he been vocal up to that point and then just suddenly...
Yeah, he's a rabid anti-masker. He's all about, people can make their own choices about their own health fears now. Well, no, because,
you're making choices for other people all the time.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, yeah.
So that's the message here, listeners, that wearing a mask is not about protecting yourself, although it will give you some protection, but mainly it's about protecting other people from you.
Yeah, it's about... Yeah, and even if you've had it, doesn't mean to say you're not carrying it.
Well, there have been cases of people who got COVID, wasn't too bad, they recovered from it, and then a few months later they got it again and died of it.
Yes.
Same strain.
Yes, indeed. So be careful out there when you're travelling, folks. And funnily enough, travelling is what we're here to talk about today. Did you like that segue, Neil?
That's very, very clever. I'm impressed,
because back in 2018, some satellite footage was found that showed a contrail, that's a condensed water trail, that basically, when you look up and you see an airplane and it leaves this streaky line of cloud behind it that dissipates after about 5 to 10 minutes. Well, one of these going from pole to pole. Now, I've got some...
Now, do they know which direction it was going in?
Yes, it was going from north to south.
Now, just to be clear, they didn't actually see the thing that made this contrail, did they? They just saw the contrail.
The contrail itself. This was taken from satellite imagery. I think it was from the International Space Station, but I might be wrong about that.
Right.
I was more interested in the contrail itself, to be honest. But I seem to recall someone mentioning...
It's interesting that they saw that. I mean, now contrails, as anyone who's looked up into the sky will know, you've seen a jet going over at high altitude. As you said, they don't stick around long. Apparently, they can stick around for up to half an hour, but usually they're gone in less than 15 minutes. So,
I've never seen one last a whole half hour.
Well, some of them they do stick around. I don't know. I've never looked at it for half an hour. I guess I've never really. But the implication of this is that some kind of vehicle travelled from Antarctica. Is it actually pole to pole, or is it somewhere in Antarctica to somewhere in the Arctic, somewhere in the North Pole, and got there and travelled so quickly that its contrail was completely intact by the time it had arrived?
Yeah. Do you want some
contrail was
statistics thrown at you?
Yes,
some numbers.
I do, always. Yes.
So the distance is approximately 12,000 miles. Now, if it lasted 30 minutes, which, to be honest, when we talk about them dissipating, they become all fuzzy and hazy and they spread out. So, which is not what this contrail looked like at all. It looked crisp and clean from top to bottom, I thought. So erring on the side of caution, even if it was 30 minutes after, or it took 30 minutes to go from pole to pole, that is 24,000 miles per hour.
If a contrail lasted half an hour?
Yes. If it took half an hour from pole to pole, that is a speed of 24,000 miles per hour.
So realistically, we're probably talking more twice that speed than, say, 50,000 miles an hour.
That's probably closer, yeah, for 15 minutes. I mean, even 15 minutes, I think, is pushing it, because when you look at the images online of this contrail, it's not fuzzy. And they do go fuzzy and dissipate and spread out. And it's not. I think we're talking even less than that, maybe within 5 minutes. Well, but that's an estimation on my part.
Were they able to work out what altitude this would have been at?
Not that I've seen. But even at 24,000 miles per hour, the fastest current aircraft in existence today is the North American X-15, Neil, that flies at approximately 5,000 miles per hour, Mach 6.7.
Which is... Am I allowed to say fuck? It's fucking fast.
It is fucking fast. We say fuck a lot on this show.
By comparison, for our American listeners, our gun-owning American listeners, if you have an AR-15, the muzzle velocity of an AR-15 is something like 3,000 feet per second, which is about 2,000 miles per hour. It's called, for those of us not Americans who don't know much about guns, the muzzle velocity is obviously when you fire a round, the round is pushed up the barrel by the expanding gases. It's accelerating as it goes up the barrel. It's accelerating all the time until it comes free of the muzzle, and that's when the gases behind it will quickly dissipate, and it's simply a free-flying object subject to the laws of gravity and friction. So as the round comes out of the muzzle, that's when it's travelling the fastest, and that's about 2,000 miles an hour for a high-velocity round.
Now does that explain... So my familiarity with guns starts and ends with Hollywood. Or maybe video games as well. But when you see people with these sniper rifles, they've always got a really long barrel on them. Is that to give it as much acceleration as possible? Then?
A longer barrel will give you, up to a point, the longer the barrel, the more power will be behind it. For instance, a 9mm round fired from a submachine gun with a 6-inch barrel will go further than the same round fired from a pistol with a 3-inch barrel. So yeah, you will get more acceleration, but also greater accuracy. A longer weapon will be more accurate over a long range.
Okay,
because you've kind of got more control, and as any gun owners will know, longer weapons are safer in the hands of novices. If you've got someone on a range with a rifle, especially, during military training, we would put them down in the prone position, and you'd be there with your rifle. It's not easy for you to turn round with your weapon and put other people in danger. If someone stood there with a pistol, it's really easy for them to start waving it around and and it could go in any direction. So yeah, so 2,000 miles an hour, and we're talking about something going 25 times that speed. Now, something travelling at that speed, wouldn't that have other effects? Wouldn't it generate tremendous heat, tremendous friction as it passed through the air?
One would assume. Yeah, I would have thought so.
Now, there was a story in the news just last week about an asteroid, and it hit Earth, and we've got the technology now. It was spotted before it hit us. We've now, all these films that, oh no, there's an asteroid on its way. It's going to collide with us next year. Well, actually, they only got a heads up a couple of minutes beforehand. This thing was that the measurements were weird because they gave measurements in feet and in metric, but they didn't match up. They said it was 6 to 9 feet across, or 3 to 4 meters. Well, 3 to 4 meters is 9 to 12 feet across. So you're talking a relatively small lump of rock, and it landed on it hit a Norwegian island, presumably uninhabited, and they said that the explosion that it caused by impact was, I think it was it half of a Hiroshima or a quarter of a Hiroshima. It's a pretty big bang for a small object, but travelling at those kinds of cosmic speeds. That's what happens because when air is compressed, it heats up. Anyone who's pumped up a bicycle tire will know you start pumping as the air gets compressed, the pump starts getting hot in your hand. And that's because as an object passes through the air, it's kind of pushing the air molecules. Air isn't just empty space, it's full of air molecules. And it's pushing the molecules out of the way. If you've got an object moving, a large object, then air will get trapped in front of it and it will start getting compressed and it will start heating up. And if it's a very, very fast moving object, then basically before an asteroid strikes, everything, the second before it strikes, everything on the ground just gets frazzled, just gets wiped out because the air is superheated ahead of it. Yes, it's compressed. So I'm thinking that whatever made this contrail would have generated traveling at 50,000 miles an hour, and presumably something more than 6 feet or 2 meters across. That's kind of. I would have thought that would have left other traces of its passage.
Well, it all, I would have thought, depends on aerodynamics. So, I mean, we mentioned the North American X-15 traveling at 5,000 miles an hour. I mean, I imagine that the front end of that gets pretty warm, but obviously it's shaped such to minimise that. But I think that's a reasonable thing to say. Whatever it was that was travelling either got very hot or there was a technology involved that dissipated the heat or stopped that from happening, displaced the air molecules, perhaps.
Do they know what altitude it was at?
They don't. Well, not that I've seen anywhere.
Because there must be. I think you can only create a contrail at a certain altitude, can't you? That if the plane's flying low, I don't know does it create a contrail if a low flying plane? Does it have to be a certain height? And obviously, if it's above a certain height.
Well, yeah, you if you're leaving the atmosphere, you're not going to get a contrail. No, I think you're right. I think it's only within. Yeah, it's only above a certain. It's your the plane that you get on holiday to Barbados in, that sort of height.
So you're talking 30 to 50,000,
40,000 feet.
30 to 50,000 feet. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is high enough that if this thing was getting absolutely hot, would we even be aware? And we don't know how big this object would have been either. I mean, it's I can see it being possible that at very fast speeds, it creates a much bigger contrail than the object itself.
Well, would you even see something travelling at 50,000 miles an hour 80,000 kilometres per hour.
I'd struggle too.
If it was large, you might. If it was large and far away, I mean, when you look up into space, you're seeing things.
Yeah, but relatively speaking, I mean, we're talking, like I say, a distance of 12,000 miles.
And the route it took was pretty much over the Atlantic, or didn't it cross Western Africa at one point?
It did at one point, but yeah, it was mostly over water.
Now, I have to broach a related topic, not contrails, but chemtrails. Which there are lots of conspiracy theories about.
There are.
People who look at what are contrails, and say, well, that's not a contrail. That's actually chemicals been sprayed into the atmosphere. We're either under some kind of chemical or biological attack, or they're messing with it's LSD. It's
usually or they're messing with control, the weather, isn't it?
Mind control stuff. But what prompts it is what prompts people to say that's not a contrail, that's a chemtrail, is because it seems to hang around for much, much longer. That's what they, or when you get lots of them crisscrossing each other in the sky. So is it possible that actually, although they say, a contrail can last up to half an hour, but is usually gone after about 10 or 15 minutes, but actually under certain circumstances, they can hang around a lot longer, and that's what people are seeing when they report a chemtrail.
Now, just to stick my own stake in the ground here, I don't believe for one moment in chemtrails.
I don't, and in fact, Edward Snowden, who worked, who was deeply embedded with the CIA, said he looked into this whole business and never found anything about anything in any CIA files about it. But what I'm suggesting is that not so much that the government or someone is spraying things in the atmosphere, which takes the form of like a contrail, but it hangs around longer. What I'm saying is that under certain circumstances, actually contrails last a lot longer than people say. They can last for hours under the right circumstances.
I have never personally seen a contrail last for hours. What I have seen, and we live not too far from Heathrow, being close to London, so we do see quite a few aircraft in the sky around us. Actually, they're living this much closer, we don't see that many actual contrails. But certainly when I live Bristol and Swindon, which is more, it's a westerly direction from London. It's about sort of 70 miles out from London. You did see a lot of contrails, and what you would quite often get is you get an airplane go over, and it'd leave a contrail. And then 10 minutes later, you get another aeroplane going in exactly the same direction, leaving another contrail. So it's perfectly reasonable that...
So it's the same contrail getting refreshed. But
basically, yeah.
Yeah, but
I think when people are seeing them for a lengthy period of time, airplanes tend to follow the same flight pattern, same routes. But yeah, when you actually look at contrails, they dissipate pretty quick. I can see that. I'm no meteorologist at all, but there is a sense of logic to it with me that different contrails, depending on humidity levels, depending on altitude, depending on air density, all this kind of thing, are going to affect how long a contrail is going to last. So you're going to get variation. Pure logic says that. But yeah, lasting hours, nah, I've never known that. I have seen multiple aircraft go the same direction, though. So.
But that was only explain what people are misidentifying as chemtrails. They're saying, well, the reason it's staying up there for so long is because it's not condensed air. It's actually some sort of chemical up there that's been sprayed. but even that would dissipate, wouldn't it? I mean, that's the whole point. But yeah, that it's actually several aircraft renewing the same.
That's my
the
theory.
Same Contrail, okay.
The whole chemtrail thing, no.
But also, I mean, there aren't many flights between Antarctica and the North Pole, are there?
There aren't. Now, we haven't mentioned the idea of experimental craft. But still, flying that sort of speed. In 2025, Lockheed Martin are hoping to unveil a new aircraft that will be the fastest ever. And that they're hoping it's going to achieve speeds of Mach 7. Well, that's not much faster than the North American X-15.
Well, I can think of another aircraft that's faster than the North American X-15 by a long chalk, and that's the Space Shuttle. How long does a Space Shuttle take to orbit the Earth? It can do it pretty quickly, can't it? A couple of hours.
Can it?
Yeah. Once it's in space, it's moving at the kinds of speeds an aircraft flying through the atmosphere could never reach.
But is it going against the spin of the Earth? Basically using the Earth's spin to go around
Possibly.
a bit quicker?
Possibly, yeah.
Like Superman did in that movie. to turn back time.
Yeah.
Show me age there.
I don't think they're actually affecting the rate of spin or changing.
How would we know, Neil? How would we know?
Yeah. But yeah, obviously, if you want to do an orbit of the Earth, say, okay, we're over Los Angeles now. How long will it take? Let's do a quick orbit. It will be faster if we go this way because we'll be. And actually, and if you go the other way, of course, the Earth is turning with you. You've got to go faster than the Earth is turning. So I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. There's that. Yeah. That's probably mainly how it's achieved. You're using the Earth's rotation.
Because you and I know, Neil, that Father Christmas does the opposite. He goes with the Earth's spin. That's why he's able to get around the world in one night.
Absolutely, yes. Starting in the southern hemisphere and then the northern hemisphere, you've got longer nights. So
absolutely,
we know that's how Father Christmas works. So I'm thinking, yeah,
it's an interesting one.
I'm more inclined to think it's some sort of natural phenomenon, something caused by air pressure, whatever, that's done something weird to clouds. I know it's an odd thing that goes all the way. Was it all the way around the Earth? Were they able to ascertain
we can only
that?
see the one side.
Yeah.
So, don't know.
That actually could the Earth have been in some. Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Some sort of weather condition of the Atlantic but
it is a straight line, and that suggests speed as well. Because, like you say, the Earth is spinning. So either it was in a sort of geosynchronous path, so basically on an angle to create a straight line up and down, moving with the Earth's spin, or it was just so fast that it doesn't matter how fast the Earth was going.
Well, the Earth is going pretty fast.
Yeah.
I know. The Earth is what? 26,000 miles at its circumference on the equator? So it's 24,000 miles. Well, it gets around that in a day, so that's 1,000 miles an hour.
I was thinking what's it called? The astronomer's song, from Monty Python. Just remember that you're standing on a planet that's revolving at 900 miles an hour. There you go.
But depending on where you're standing.
Yes. It's going to be less at the poles and more at the equator. I'm going to throw one last thing at you before we summarise, Neil.
Okay.
Do you remember a few episodes ago we discussed Admiral Byrd?
Yes.
His hollow Earth thing that happened back in March 19. Well, it happened back in 1947, and in March 1947, when he wrote up his report, he said, "It's not a direct quote. I'm slightly paraphrasing, but he said that they had encountered a new enemy that could fly pole to pole in an instant." Seems to have been borne out by this image.
Didn't he claim to have done some sort of battle down in the
He did.
in the Antarctic with either with the remnants of the Nazis or extraterrestrials, or an unholy alliance of the two?
Could be. I mean, the whole Nordic alien thing is, that's. But that seems to have been borne out by this trail, I would say. So let's summarise then. I mean, you put forward the theory it's some weird kind of weather formation that we've not seen before. Is that your...
Yeah. That we might find actually it's a lot more common than we realised. But it's not a contrail.
We do take a lot of satellite images, and that's why I personally am kind of ruling out the weather pattern thing, because we have a lot of satellite images of the planet, and if it was a weather pattern, we'd have seen it before.
Yeah, I also, just thinking of the way things fly, I mean, we, being Europeans, we often go on very short flights. We'll fly from London to Amsterdam or something, and almost at no point is the plane flying horizontal. It climbs to its cruising altitude, and then after a minute or so begins its descent.
Yes.
Well, that contrail, we don't know the altitude, but surely someone flying that distance, they would be gaining height as quickly as they could. Obviously, that would save, and unless there's some technology where that's not a consideration. But in a plane, if you're flying a long distance, you want to be as high as you can because you're more fuel efficient where the air is thinner.
Yes.
So that wouldn't leave a consistent contrail, would it? If you were going from sort of ground level up to say 100, 200,000 feet and then descending again.
I think, where the poles are, it would be fairly. It would show us an insignificant distance on a satellite image of the planet as a whole, and the distance required to get up to cruising altitude and back down from it. It would look like a sheer cliff from a satellite image. Because they do get up to height fairly quickly. I mean, like you say, we fly over to France, and the plane really can't even get up to a cruising height.
No.
But if we're going to Germany, say yes, it might get up to a cruising height.
But I mean, they even notice it when they're serving drinks. If you're on a plane where they're serving drinks and refreshments, that they will be pushing the trolley from the front of the plane down to the rear, fore to aft, because they're pushing it downhill, and then as the plane's making its descent, where they have to wheel it back, the plane's pointing downwards, so they're pushing it downhill again. Yeah, you see it, don't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but I think let's not forget how big the poles are as continents. They are pretty huge. I think, and it's like you said, we don't know if this thing has actually come around. So has it come from the other side of the planet and gone to the other side of the planet? On the other side, we don't really know. Well, I'm going to stick my stake in the ground and say I haven't got a clue. I think it is either some sort of extraterrestrial craft, or it is reverse engineered from extraterrestrial craft. So perhaps human built, but not human design.
I'm going to stick my stake in the ground and say I don't think we have anything that can approach those speeds, and I don't think any technology has been developed whereby a human being could survive travelling at those speeds.
We do have automated drones and things.
Yeah, it wouldn't be carrying a passenger at that kind of speed. But I'm going more with weather phenomenon.
What do you think, though, listeners? We always like to hear your thoughts on these things. Is Neil right? Is it just a matter of weather?
Of course he's right.
Have we spent an entire episode just discussing the weather? We are British after all.
Yes.
Or is it something more involved? You can let us know exactly what you think via the usual means. You can email us, aliensexplored@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook by searching Aliens Explored. Or if you are one of our Patreon members at any tier, you gain exclusive access to our Discord server where you can chat with us and like-minded people about any of the episodes we discuss and anything else UFO related as well. You can find all our various tiers with lots and lots of lovely rewards, something for most people there, I think, at patreon.com/aliens explored. And as ever, link will be in the description. Join us next time, though, when we will be discussing quite a famous author in the field of ufology. Someone else you see quite often on the documentaries with that Nick Pope bloke. This time we'll be discussing Richard Dolan.
Richard Dolan. Right.
Richard Dolan. So that's one not to miss. In the meantime, keep watching those contrails, chemtrails, call them what you will, and the sky. But in the skies, not and the skies, in the skies. Until next time, take care.
Bye-bye.
Aliens Explored is a Figo Films production in association with Juicy Fomes. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter and Facebook by searching Aliens Explored or visit aliensexplored.com.